The last part that is missing on our platform is the database server, which I will set up in this video. As always, I start with creating the necessary folder structure for the DB server role. Now I can create the task list. First step, installing the necessary software. The Python MySQL DB package is needed in order to enable Ansible to create and manipulate MySQL databases. I do want a database backup and I'm going for a simple solution, running MySQL dump via a cron job every night. As I need a database, I let Ansible create it. When the database doesn't exist, Ansible will consider the adding database task as changed and therefore notify the defined handlers, in this case import DB. This makes sure that the initial database structure is important, but Ansible won't touch it afterwards, hence it won't override any changes made by the application. Of course, I have to provide the database dump, and I do so by copying an SQL file over. I can do this after the adding database task, because as all handlers, the import DB handler will run after all tasks of the new role are done. Besides the database, the application also needs a MySQL user. I use the MySQL user module to create one that is allowed to access the database from any host. As password, I'm using the same that Ansible created in the application server role. The priv parameter takes the same arguments as the grant command of MySQL. In this case, the user will have all rights on all tables of the Ansible tutorial database. Finally, I have to change the configuration of the MySQL server itself. By default, a MySQL server will only allow access from the machine it's running on. More specifically, it will only listen on the localhost network interface. In order to allow access from the application server, I have to tell it to listen to all network interfaces. This can be done by changing the bind parameter in a config file. I will therefore copy the config file over. To activate that change, I do have to restart MySQL, so I add a notify here. So now that the list of tasks is done, I have to provide the files that Ansible is going to copy, and I start with the configuration file. As mentioned, I want to change the bind address of the MySQL daemon, and I can do this like that. Next is the SQL dump I want Ansible to import. I copy it to the files folder of the role. As you can see, it's just one table with 3 records in it. The last part is to create the handlers. The first one was import DB, and I'm again using Ansible's MySQL DB module. Besides the database name, it also needs the special state import, which will tell Ansible to import the SQL file specified with the target parameter. The second handler was the restart MySQL handler, and I'm using the service module for this. With state equals restarted, I can make sure that Ansible will restart the service regardless if it was already running or not. Now I can add the role host combination to the playbook and let Ansible execute it. As you can see, the database has been created, and as last step of the role, the handlers were called. Let's have a look at the database server to see if it worked. Well, the cron job has been created. The database exists also. Looks good so far. If I open the browser now and hit reload, the application should show me random quotes from the database. Great, it works! This is the end of the tutorial. I hope you liked it and thanks for watching.